Our special guest today is Professor John Langmore, who has worked at the United Nations for 5 years and is now teaching at Melbourne University. So would you please welcome Professor John Langmore.
Thank you, Helen, and for the invitation, and it's good to see people here. I'd like to congratulate Helen for having run this interfaith function every year for 17 years, and it's various activities have been part of that, but it's been a great achievement to keep it going, and I think very important. So I thank you very much for doing that. This event turns out to be particularly well-timed, I think, because not only is it the International Day of Peace, but there are some very good reasons why one would be preoccupied with peace today. The International Day of Peace was declared by the UN General Assembly for strengthening the ideals of peace within and among all nations and peoples. The theme for 2017 is Together for Peace, Respect, Safety and Dignity for All. The day is timely, first because violence has grown in the last 5 years. For the years after the end of the Cold War, there tended to be a decline in the level of interstate violence. But in the last 5 years, the amount of interstate and civil violence has increased again. And in fact, between 2011 and 2016, it has trebled. And that's really a shocking trend. It is partly due to particular events in the Middle East, in the civil war in Syria and the conflict with Daesh in Syria and Iraq. But there is violent conflict within another 23 countries, and that's a really terrible development. One result of that is that 65 million people are displaced, and that is a profoundly worrying development with all kinds of consequences, which I'm sure you're all aware of in various ways. But a third reason for why this is timely is because this is the week when the General Assembly, the UN General Assembly, begins its annual meetings. And there was, on Tuesday, an address by the President of the United States, which was particularly worrying. He talked about the possibility of totally destroying North Korea. I don't think a more aggressive speech has ever been made at the United States before, in the United Nations before, by any national leader. And it's tragic that it's just the latest episode in his relentlessly bellicose statements. Fortunately, however, the UN elected a new Secretary General, and he began work at the beginning of January, on January the 1st. Antonio Guterres had been Prime Minister of Portugal for 7 years and High Commissioner for Refugees for 10 years, so he was particularly well equipped to take on being Secretary General of the UN. And he spoke also on Tuesday, and amongst his very important remarks were the comment that when tensions rise, so does the chance of miscalculation. Fiery talk can lead to fatal misunderstandings. And he's been saying, ever since he took office in January, that there are 3 priorities for the UN: conflict prevention, and conflict prevention. And it's centrally important, not only in relation directly to peace, but also in relation to economic and social development and human rights and so on. He's been active in starting to prepare for that by proposing reforms to the peace and security architecture and trying to make those more effective by the kinds of people he's appointed to the leadership of those parts of the organisation. One of his initiatives is to appoint a new high-level panel on mediation with some of the most wise and skilled and experienced multilateralists on it. And I think that'll be very helpful in developing mediation. But of course, peace depends on nations as well as on the General Assembly, and it's very important that Australia take up its work on conflict prevention and peace building. So to conclude, I think we can all contribute to peace. We can all seek to be peace-loving people who know the things that belong to peace and to pray and work for peace. Thank you.